Brenda and John, thanks so much for joining us here at Develop. You guys, you've just done your kind of opening back-to-back keynotes, and they were really distinct talks in a way, but there was a synergy in that they were about the passage of time, right? Maybe yours retrospectively, John, and yours was about sticking with it. Yeah. So it would be interesting to hear a little more about kind of, I guess, what you talked about and why you kind of felt compelled to share that kind of thing with people.
Well, I guess for my talk, it was, there's been a lot of negative talk about the game industry lately. And for me, it's my family, it's my home, it's where I've been for a long time. And there's a ton of things in this world I don't know, but I feel like one thing I do know is the game industry. Yeah. And so I just wanted to really talk about the positive things about it, and that if you want to survive and thrive, as greeting card as that sounds, in the game industry, yeah. These are the things that I've done over the years and the things that I try to continue to do just to make me still feel passionate about games.
Yeah. And John, yours was quite personal, I'd say, but that was almost interesting about how much your personal life is connected with one's career, right?
Yeah. I think with my life in games talk, a lot of people don't know that I actually grew up in Arizona, in Tucson, Arizona, and like the fact that I'm Hispanic and a whole bunch of other stuff. Some people thought I was Italian.
Right.
Other people thought I was just a white guy. So I thought that people would like to know a little bit more. It doesn't really get into that in Masters of Doom, so this was like more information. Yeah. And then going along the timeline, just some of the people that had been around for a while were, their memory was refreshed on some of the really old stuff from the 70s and 80s I talked about. And then other people got to hear the stuff for the first time. Some people was like, wow, I didn't know that happened, back then. So it was kind of a history lesson.
Yeah, it was an inspiring one. And to delve a little deeper, I'm going to start with you, Brenda. Whether by accident or design, you had a bit of a catchphrase for your talk, which was, I'm a fucking wizard. Now, I know you were originally talking about, like, escapism and, I guess, liberation from identity in Dungeons and Dragons, but it seemed to almost capture a spirit of your talk and a kind of spirit that's allowed you to be around so long. Some of your advice was about developers not taking on too much too personally. Like, what is the I'm a fucking wizard spirit? It's a nice straightforward question for you.
I remember there was a whole part I left out of the talk, but it really, around that same time, I had actually lost all my friends. Mm-hmm. And it was in hindsight, all the parents made the right decision. Basically, the short version of the story is I had two friends, one of whom we were all planning an overnight, camping outside, and one of them took liquor from her parents' cabinet. When she got busted, she blamed me. Uh-huh. And I can totally see how this happened, because even then, like, I started swearing at some point pretty young, and so if I were going to point the finger, it's probably that kid. So anyway, I remember just really feeling like really low, all the things that I described. And there has always been, I've always had, I don't know where I get it, but this, I will call it, I'm a fucking wizard sense, right? I've always had this thing, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to fucking do it. Like I was told I wouldn't get into Clarkson University, so I applied only to Clarkson University, and I applied early admission, and I got in. And I think a lot of us, especially those of us who have come from, like, the term we use for John and me and some of our friends, the Poor Kids Club, right. That you overcome a lot of stuff, and you don't even really feel like you're overcoming it. It's just like you were saying, you played in the dirt, right? Yeah. Like, it just is what it is. Yeah. Right? But if you're not expecting something, or you don't have a lot of something, when you get something, even the slightest something, you feel like, I'm a fucking wizard.
No.
And so it just wasn't this question of being unpopular or ostracized or anything. Like, I felt I was having fun, and I didn't care what anybody else thought of it, And I really feel like that's still how I feel. I might have these moments where I'm like, oh my God, what are people going to think? But it goes really quickly, really, really quickly.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend to know you, but at the same time, that spirit seems to have been what's kept you going 36, coming up for 37 years, right?
There's certainly been moments where I've been like, that's it, I've had it. Like, there have been times where I finished some particularly difficult projects, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. And as soon as this is done, I'm never making another game. And before it's even done, you know what game would be cool? Like, there's still, like, I keep forgetting, like, there's still a game idea I have to talk to him about that I really want to make. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
just interesting. And John, what your talk reminded me, I forgot how significant it was that let's say your early 3D titles in particular were shareware.
Yeah.
And I guess there's, I'm going to use the word synergy again there. You know, I remember the shareware, and I don't know, we have public domain here in the UK. I don't know if it carried that name elsewhere. And I'd never thought of it until you spoke about it, somehow comparable with modern game download. So I just wondered how relevant your experience and lessons from the shareware days remain today.
You know, like the fact that back then you would make a game out of 3 parts, put one part out there for free, and then you buy the other episodes, is like episodic purchases now. You're going to get the first one, like a Telltale game, and then if you finish that first episode, if you want the second one, you buy the second one. So you're like episodically purchasing a game again. Like we did back then, except back then we put the whole first one out there absolutely for free. It didn't expect anything. In fact, what we did with Doom is we put it out there for free, and then we told everyone every company that could put their get a disc, you know, on the store shelf. We said, you make the money from it. Charge $10 and you keep it all and get it in the store. That's how we want our distribution. We will make no money off that thing you put in the store. And so you saw boxes of Doom there was like 10 different boxes of Doom, all with the same shareware in it in the store, but we got everyone to put it out there,
Wow.
and they made money on it.
We'll still see one every once in a while. It's like, wow. Like, I'll send a link to him. Like, have you ever seen this one? He's like, nope.
Also regarding her stay talk, when I got my first industry job at Origin, the guy who hired me, my boss, John Frascini, he was in charge of me, and I was doing a port of 2400 AD from the Apple to the Commodore.
Right.
He was in charge of Ultima 5 being ported to the PC, and he was in charge of a 3 or 4 person team. And he told me when I started working there, I was 20, I just turned 20, and he told me, you know, programmers basically burn out by 30, and he was 26 at that time.
Right.
And I was like, what? 30? I've been doing this for like 10 years already, and I just got started. Like I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not getting burned out at 30. I can't even
You're not
imagine
even
that.
close to being burned out
Yeah.
at this point. I mean,
It was kind of fun, but back then I could see it. I could see maybe it was more grindy back then, but also the pay was not that good. Like
Right.
$30,000 a year was max for a
Right.
programmer back in the 80s.
Wow. Right. And we should move on to the conference, right? It would just be interesting to hear as kind of a debutante at Develop. This is your first time. Like, what's in particular, maybe if it in the way the conference might be distinct, how does Develop as a conference strike you?
So far, I would say we really like it. I mean, it's
Developers.
Yeah, it's developers.
Which is great.
For starters,
Game
right?
developers.
But I like that it's small and compact. Love the venue. Absolutely love the venue. He hasn't had time to go out and explore yet.
Yeah.
But Brighton's amazing.
Yeah.
But I really like that there's lots of time to meet. I feel like there's time to meet everybody as opposed to these massive groups of people going by each other.
Yeah.
So far, I really like it. There's a good diversity of talks going on. So there hasn't been a time where I'm like, there's nothing I want to see.
Yeah.
Except maybe when I was talking. But
And it's
This
great
is
you
the only
mentioned
one.
Brighton because it does feel so defining to the spirit of what this conference is, right? This is our kind of own little mini San Francisco on the south coast of England, and there's something special here. I've almost lived around the area for years, but has that struck you,
Oh,
Brighton as a
absolutely.
place?
So yesterday afternoon, I took a walk into just where all the shops are because to pick up something for our daughters. And I immediately knew, I'm like, we're coming back next year. Because we've been invited previous years and just haven't, because of whatever with our schedule, we couldn't make it. So this year, it was like, whatever, we don't have anything booked for this time next year, we're coming next year. Like, it's just, I really like it. I like the intimacy of it, of the conference, and I like I love the location.
Yeah. Well, as much as I want to ask you lots more and I feel we could talk for hours, I think we are about out of time. So just thank you very much for coming to Develop and sharing inspiring and funny talks with us.
Thanks for
Thank
having us
you.
here.
Cheers.